Hi there! In today's video, I'm going to reverse engineer ChatGPT CodeInterpreter and integrate it into my ChatWTF ChatGPT clone project. Now, I'm not quite sure if we can get into the integration in today's video, but at least we're going to create a terminal version of it as a proof of concept. So if you don't know what ChatGPT CodeInterpreter is, it is an extra feature of GPT-4. And actually, nowadays it is called Advanced Data Analysis. And what this does is it enables ChatGPT to run some Python code in order to answer your question better. So, for example, here I just said, organize these names in alphabetical order, and I added some names here. Now, this is a task that ChatGPT can do by itself, but it might hallucinate something, and it might not be correct. But in this case, it will actually create some Python code into which it adds these names in a list, and then it sorts it with Python, and then it gets the answer, and then it can answer in the right format. Now, you can take this further, and you can actually say, create a PNG chart with the length of each name, and then it will actually create a chart that you can view in the browser. And again, this was done with Python, with this matplotlib library. So it just runs this and it saves it into a file, and then it shows the. Also, what I tried to do is I tried to say this, create an image where these two images are next to each other in one image. And then I pasted two image URLs. But unfortunately, it says that it cannot access external URLs. But then it actually asked me to upload the files. And when I did it, it actually tried to do it, but these files were in the AVIF file format, which I haven't even heard of before, but I copied them from Unsplash and they came in that format, so it was unable to do it. But I'm sure if they were JPEG images, then it could actually be done. And finally, I created some chart of prime numbers, which has already disappeared because this doesn't save the data. Oh, actually, it came from there now. So here it is. So let's try and recreate this behavior. So I am going to use PHP for this because my ChatWTF ChatGPT clone has been made with PHP. Now, I will still run Python from PHP because I think there are more libraries for Python that can do this kind of charts and stuff. And I think ChatGPT has actually been trained more on Python. So let's get started. I am just going to create a file called test.php just to get started. And what are we going to do here? Let's first try to make a function that will run some Python code and then return the result. So let's create a function called run Python code, and it will take the string of the code and it will return. Let's create like a result. So we want to have the output of the code and the status of the command. So let's create a Python result. And what are we going to do here? I am just going to write the code into a Python file. So let's do file, put contents into code.py. We are going to write code. And then I'm going to run that code with Python. So I'm going to do exec, and I'm going to say python3 code.py. And I'm going to get the output from this, and I'm going to get the result code. And let's initialize these here. Output is an empty array, and result code is null to begin with. And output will only have the standard out, but I want also standard error, so I will do, it's something like pipe 2 into 1. So this will pipe the standard error into standard output, something like this. So we can do that. And then we can just return new Python result with the output and the result code. And let's create quickly this Python result class. And this will just have a constructor. So I'm just going to say public function construct, and we are going to take a public string output and public int result code. And we don't have to have any body in this constructor. And that is all we need. So now if we run something like, let's say, echo, or of course we can echo because it's a Python result, so let's just print R for now, the run Python code of print hello world. And if we now run this, we should get a Python result with the output being hello world and result code being 1. If I add a T here to get rid of that error. So let's run php test.php and we can error. Because the output is in fact an array. So I want to implode with a new line the output. Because exec writes every line into this output array as an element in the array. And now I'll actually do output is this and result code is that. Just so that I can answer in the comments when somebody asks me, why doesn't this work with PHP 7.2? So let's try and run this now. And we in fact get a Python result with output being hello world and result code being 0. Did I say 1 before? Of course, it is 0 when it succeeds. Now, we might want to delete the code after we write it, because this is kind of like a temporary file. So we could actually put it into temp, and then we could unlink temp/code.py. And I guess only if the file exists. And I guess if for some reason we cannot write to temp, then we should throw new exception, unable to write code file. So let's verify one more time that this actually works. It still works. So what should we do next? I guess we just give this ability to run Python code to ChatGPT. So I am going to go to my ChatGPT PHP library, which is in my PHP GPT funcs repo. So here I have the library. And I have chatgpt.php, which is all I need, and I am going to copy the raw file and I'm going to create a file. Code chatgpt.php, and I'm going to paste this code in here. So now we have this ChatGPT library that we can easily use to call ChatGPT even with function calls. So let's do exactly that. Let's say ChatGPT is new ChatGPT. And of course we have to require chatgpt.php. And we are going to pass in here the API key, which I will get from the environment, OpenAI API key. And let's set some sort of system message. So let's say ChatGPT S message. And this is going to be, you are an AI assistant that can run Python code in order to answer the user's question. Let's see if that is enough. We are going to add more detail if we need. And let's pass in to ChatGPT the function, add function. And we are going to create a function called Python. Now, there's actually a good reason why I'm going to call this Python and not something like run Python code. Well, first of all, we already have a function called run Python code, but I don't want to pass this directly into ChatGPT. This is just the function that actually does it, but then I will create another function called Python with the string of the code. And this is going to return a string, which is JSON. Now, the reason why I call this Python is that the ChatGPT API seems to have been fine-tuned for function calling using a function named Python. So if I tell it that it can run Python code, it tries to run a function called Python. Even if I don't pass it in, or if I pass another name for this function, it will still try to call Python. So I will just conform to ChatGPT's wants, and I am going to call it Python. And that kind of tells me that in the background, ChatGPT CodeInterpreter uses this kind of technique as well. So they have actually fine-tuned it already for that. So here what we are going to do is we are going to run Python code with the code. And I'll also add here a confirmation for now so that it doesn't actually run it directly. So I'll say if input, do you want to run this code, yes or no, is not yes, then we are going to just return Python code disallowed. And let's actually echo here, I want to run this Python code. And let's add the code here and maybe a couple of new lines here. And then we ask, do you want to run this code? And then we will run the code and this will be the result. So then what we're going to do is we are going to return JSON encode. I might actually be able to pass in just the results. Can I JSON encode a class if it's not standard? Maybe I can even cast it to standard class. But I might in fact just make it an array and I'll give it output, which will be result output, and I will give it the result code, which is result code. So this is what we are returning for ChatGPT. So it wants a JSON encoded string. And then I will add some doc block here, which will be passed into ChatGPT. So I will say run Python code. I'm not sure if we need any more information. And the parameter string code is the code to run. Now, if you take a look at ChatGPT, it actually, well, here it doesn't return anything, but if we go here, then it will actually add this like file path in the end so that will be the result. But I'm not sure how to make it print out the last line like this. So if I would type all of this into the interactive terminal, interactive interpreter of Python, then it would actually print it out. But if I run it with Python 3, then it won't do anything. So I will add here, code must have a print statement in the end that prints out the relevant return value. Something like this. So my ChatGPT library will parse this doc block and then it will send that data to ChatGPT through the API. So then we just pass in the function here, add function Python, and it will add that function there. Now, of course, we don't have input, so I'm going to create an input function input, and this will take the message or question or whatever, and it will return a string. And we are going to say stdin is fopen php/stdin in write mode, I'm in read mode, and we are going to say that the line is fgets stdin, and we are going to fclose stdin, and we are going to return line, and we are going to trim it. So that should now work. And we have to echo the message. So let's try and run this. But first we have to actually send a message. So what should we do? Let's do this. ChatGPT new message for user message, and we're going to say create a chart. Let's call it a line chart of the first 5 prime numbers. And I just make sure that I have pip install matplotlib. I have it installed already, so that is fine. So we should be able to use that. And then let's just print our ChatGPT response, which will send all the messages to ChatGPT and get the response back. And if it makes a function call, then it will send the result of the function call automatically back to ChatGPT, and then finally we will get a response from ChatGPT. So let's do that and let's try to run it. php test.php. Boom. And we got an error. So this actually came from my ChatGPT library, and I in fact know what the problem is. We are passing here to our function, which is Python, the arguments that ChatGPT gives us. And they are JSON decoded because normally the API will give a response like this. It should, in this case, return arguments with code is the code here. But for some reason, maybe just in this Python code running, it will actually just have the arguments as a string that is the code. So I think I have to modify my library to support this. So I could do something like this. If arguments is null, so if JSON decode fails, then we are going to set the arguments to whatever comes from ChatGPT. And then we are going to pass it here. So actually we have to make it an array. Now, this is not amazing to do it like this, because sometimes ChatGPT actually creates invalid JSON arguments, and then we are unable to decode that, but then that doesn't mean that we should pass in the whole JSON chunk as the first argument. But I'm not quite sure how to handle this error. So I'm going to do this, and I'll add a comment here. Sometimes ChatGPT responds with only a string of the first argument instead of a JSON object. And I have to remember to commit this into my repository actually. But now, let's try and run this again and see what happens. So now we got a question. I want to run this Python code. So we import matplotlib pyplot as PLT. And this function checks if a number is prime. Okay. And we generate the first 5 prime numbers and we generate the chart. It looks correct. So let me run this code and see what happens. And what happened here was that it said apologies, but I'm currently only able to process text and cannot display visualizations. So I wonder what happened. So we got into this function, in fact, because I answered yes. And this should be correct because we trim the line and we read from the std in. So I'm in fact going to add here a die Python code blocked. So I'll see if we actually get there. And I'm going to add here print r result. So I will see if we actually run this thing. And I can actually see the problem why this happened. It is because I'm calling code.py from the current directory, but I am saving the file into temp. So I will in fact extract this into temp file. And I will say that temp file equals that. And I'm going to pass it in here. Temp file. So now we should be able to run it. So let's try it again. And here we got our code. Again, we have an is prime and we create the primes. And then we create a chart from it. So I want to run this code. And look at this. I think we got exactly the same chart that we got from ChatGPT. So if we go back here and we go to our prime numbers chart and we wait for a while, or perhaps we refresh the page, then hopefully we still get the image. And look at this. It is exactly the same. Well, almost. We have decimals down here, but otherwise it is pretty much the same thing. And it was done with almost the same code. So it was done with matplotlib as well. So let's try, in fact, that sorting next. So I wonder why this stopped here. It stopped because it called PLT show, which is still running here. So it halted the execution. But if I close this, then we should get an answer back from ChatGPT. And it, in fact, responded. Here is a line chart of the first prime numbers. And it added a markdown link to sandbox/temp/something/output.png. Now, we don't have this name anywhere, so it hallucinated this thing, but actually, ChatGPT CodeInterpreter answers in a similar way. So there's a download the chart here. So I think we are using the same API as CodeInterpreter is using. So it is already trained for this. But we have to change something in our system message or in our definition of the function, because we actually didn't save this. Now, we didn't have to save it though. So perhaps we could create a directory here. So right now we have just code.py. Wait a minute, what is code.py? This is the original, so I will remove code.py and I'm going to create a directory called data. And I'm going to add into the system message, you can access a folder called data from the Python code to read or write files. And we should explain somehow that it should return from the function, the Python code, the name that it is writing. Well, actually, it doesn't necessarily have to return the name because it will write the code and the name will be in the code, so it knows what name it uses. Unless it uses a library that will generate the name automatically, and then it has to check it. So let's see if we need to add anything else. So let's see if we can now run this again, and will it actually save it into a file? It will not save it into a file. So maybe I could say something like, write visualizations and charts into a file if possible. So then if you run this, then it will actually save it into data/line chart. And then hopefully it will then answer us with a link to this. So let's do it. And actually it doesn't do show here now. It only does this. So let's run it and see what happens. So now I have created a line chart of the first 5 prime numbers. You can download the chart here. And again, we have a link to sandbox mount/data. And if we list data, we in fact have a line chart. If we xdg open data/line chart, we in fact have a PNG image with the first prime numbers in a chart. So it works. Now, can I do something like code data/names.csv? If I add here a name and an age, and I add Jack 55, Jason 32, and Jill 18, and then I change my prompt, I might actually just make the prompt an input. So I can say input, what do you want to do? And then if I run this, it will ask me what do I want to do. And then I can say, I have uploaded a file called data/names.csv. Please make a chart with the names and ages of the people in the CSV. And what it will do is hopefully something interesting. Okay, so we are going to use pandas and matplotlib, and we are going to read the CSV, which is from the right place, and we are going to set a bar with name and age. I'm not sure what this means. I haven't used this particular library. And we set some labels, and we do something, and we save it, and we also show it. So let's run it. And here we have, from our CSV file, we have a chart. And we have the names here. Can I zoom it somehow? I don't know how to zoom this thing. So we have Jack, who is 55, and we have Jason, who is 32, and Jill, who is 18. And then we get a response back, which will be, I have created a bar chart, and so on. And if I click this, it actually opens it in VS Code because it saved it into a file. That's pretty cool. So what else did we test here? So the sorting of the name. Well, we can actually do this. We can run it and we can do the same thing. So say the same thing, but we add sort the bars by age from lowest to highest. And if we do this, then we should have a chart that goes the other way. And we, in fact, are sorting the values somewhere up here. So let's run it. And here we have now Jill, Jason, and Jack. So it is working. And let's see this one, combining 2 images. Now, this must be, I feel like, it must be a separate system message for CodeInterpreter, because this should be able to be done with Python. Now, of course, the problem is that they are the wrong format, but at least it should be able to download it. So let's see if we can actually do this. So if we run this and we say the same thing, but we can only add 1 line right now. So I'll actually just copy it for now, and I will just pass it in here directly. So this is our message. Create an image where these two images are next to each other in one image. Now, it's a very long URL. I wonder if ChatGPT can reproduce this without hallucinations. So let's see. If we run this, what will happen? It will, in fact, get the URLs and it will open them and it will create the combined image and it will save it and it will return this. Now, this is kind of funny now because it doesn't listen to me with the print statement. So maybe I have to figure out a way to make it output this. But it shouldn't matter because it wrote this directly. So it knows what the output file will be. But here we are using URL lib and PIL. So maybe I have to install those first. So let me install pip install URL lib and PIL. Maybe it is included already. URL lib.request from PIL import image. So let's try just PIL. Okay. Well, we are going to probably get the error and then it will tell us what to do next. So let's run this code and see what happens. What? That didn't take even a second. It just happened. And now they're here. What? So this is better than CodeInterpreter. We actually bypassed the limitation of CodeInterpreter that it cannot access external URLs. This is pretty cool. So it literally just did it like that. Now, this is not exactly what I wanted. Oh, wait a minute. So this showed it again. So it's called PLT show, but I didn't really want a figure like this. But I guess I can XCG open or just code data / combined image. Then here we have the combined image. But I actually wanted them to just be together, not with like a title at the top. So let's try it again. But I am going to say there should be no titles and no space in between the images. Now, they are not quite the same size, right? This one is a different aspect ratio. So let's see what happens. Maybe I should have picked images that have the same aspect ratio. But if I'm going to run this, then we will get some code. And again, we are using PLT and we are using the PIL, which I'm not sure where that comes from. And we are opening them, we are resizing them, and we are creating a blank image and we are putting the images there. And then we are going to show it and we are going to remove the axis. Okay. And then we save it. So that's actually a very cool library, this PLT, matplotlib. So let's run this code and there's an error. URL lib has no attribute request. So we got an error and then it says, I'm sorry, but I encountered an error while trying to create the combined image. It seems that the URL lib module is not available. Wait a minute, but it was available before. Let's try it one more time. Make sure you have matplotlib and pillow. Pip install pillow. Let's just install arbitrary packages. And that is interesting. Let's try this one more time. Maybe it will work this time. And we are actually using requests this time. So that might be something to add to the system message to not use URL lib, use requests. So let's see combined image again. And this is PNG. We have a JPEG now. So let's code data / combined image.jpg. And here we have it. And it's even cropped, but the aspect ratio of the images did not stay proper. So it didn't actually crop it. It just resized it and squished it. But still, we can do it. So let's try to change this way how it links, because sometimes it's sandbox from /data, sometimes it's from /mnt and so on. So what if we say in the system message that link to created or existing files, or just link to when creating links to files in the data directory in your response, use the format. And what is the format? So it said this, and I will say link text, and then we could use sandbox and slash. We can actually use this. /data/combined image. That's fine. So then we can parse this on our front end and make it a link to wherever we want to link to. So let's run this again and see what happens. Sorry, I don't want to say combined image. I want to say just file name. So let's run this again. Okay, and we are going to run this code, and we again get an error from URL lib. So let me go back to the previous, what should I say? Just say create a chart of the first 5 prime numbers, and let's do a line chart. And let's see if we actually get the right format in the response. Okay, we are writing to prime numbers chart.png, and let's do it. And it was okay. And here is link to chart, and it is in the right format. And now if we open this code, prime numbers chart, then here we have the prime numbers chart. Now, I think that I'm not going to integrate this yet in today's video to my ChatWTF project, but that will be the next video. But what I will do is I will actually make this like a simple terminal code interpreter and publish this in a separate repository. So if you want to see the video where I integrate this with my ChatWTF ChatGPT clone, then make sure to subscribe to my channel and leave a like to this video right now. But now, let's make this a terminal code interpreter. So what I will do is I will just make a loop. While true, we are going to ask for a message. So we are going to say input, and let's do it like this. So let's do the first message like this. Let's say echo, hello, I am the mini code interpreter. What should I call this? I am the PHP code interpreter. I'll call it Pinterpreter. I don't know what to call it. This is the PHP code interpreter, which doesn't really make any sense. This is not a PHP code interpreter. It is a PHP code interpreter. What would you like to do? And let's just add GPT here, and then a new line. And let's say you, just like I did with my GPT Autopilot project. And then we are going to ask for input. And then we are going to get the response, and we are going to say echo response content. And here we should again have GPT. It says this, and a new line, and you. Maybe 2 new lines. And here also a new line, or 2. Maybe here just 1 new line. And let's get actually the message and say message is that, and if in array message in exit quit stop, then we are going to stop. We are going to echo 2 new lines and say GPT thanks, and a new line and exit. And I'm going to remove my print Rs from here, and I am going to change this. So I will say this echo, and I will add some markings here, and I am going to add it below as well. And then I am going to say new line, do you want to run this code? And I'll say, you have to say yes. If it is not yes, then we are not going to continue. And I'm going to remove this die from here. Maybe I can echo new line and skipped running code and a new line. And I'll in fact say yes or no. I want to be really sure that you want to run this. So I am going to say that the answer is going to be this. And can I do a do while loop here? I have never in my life done a do while loop, but apparently you can do while answer, while not in array, answer in yes, no. So does this always run this one time, and then it checks if the answer is not in yes or no, then it will ask it again. And I'll add a new line here, but not here. Maybe it means that. So that should look pretty nice. And I will for now remove this sandbox from here so that this will actually be clickable in the terminal, because this is an actual directory in this project. So let's see how this works. I will add some advertisement here as well. All right. Now, did I add new lines here? I did not, and I do not need 2 new lines there. And if I really want to make this nice, then I guess I should do something like styled code. And I will in fact add this thing here, and I am going to echo styled code and a new line. And what is styled code? Styled code is nothing, and code rows is explode at a new line in the code, and for each of the code rows as row, we are going to say that styled code plus equals this character and a space and the row and this, but I have to pad it. So I'll do str pad that string with the length of this much or that much, which is 45, and with the string space, which is a default, and right is the default, so that is fine. And do we need a new line here? We do need. I'll add a new line here, which looks weird. I will add here echo new line. And let's try and run this. So now it looks like this. Let's clear this. PHP Code Interpreter by Unconventional Coding. GPT. Hello, I am the PHP Code Interpreter. What would you like to do? Now, I didn't mean to add 2 new lines there. So I'll remove that from there. And I will clear and I will run it again. So now it looks like I want. And I am going to say, make a chart for the first 15 prime numbers. And I will do that. And then it is going to do something. It should tell me, I want to run this code. Okay, I forgot a new line from there. So I'm going to clear this again and let's add a new line in. So here we have a new line. Styled code, every line should have a new line. And we don't need this new line here because it will be added from here. So we'll just say styled code and let us run this again. Make a line chart of the first 15 prime numbers. And then we are going to do it. And it will show me very beautifully. I want to run this code. Import matplotlib and this prime, generate the primes, and then draw the primes, and then show it. So I'm going to say yes. What if I say just Y? It will ask me again. So I'm going to say yes. And then it is going to run it, and it's ran it, and here it is. Here are the first 15 prime numbers. And I hope they are correct. I have no idea. And when I close it, then I should get the answer from ChatGPT. And it says that the file is here, but it did not use the format that I wanted. Perhaps this is something we would have to do like fine-tuning on so that we can actually make it change the format. But we actually created the file, hopefully. Let's take a look. So in data, we have prime numbers.png, which is here, and here we have all the 15 numbers. Now, I believe that I implemented by default context for this ChatGPT library. So I should say, make it 25. Then it should make 25 numbers. And in fact, it does exactly that. So now it wants to run this code. And if I say no, what will happen? Skipped running code. And it says, I'm sorry, but I'm not able to run Python code. So what I could instead say when I return from this Python code disallowed, I will say, user rejected code. Please ask for changes or what to do next. So if I now run this again, and I will say, make a pie chart of the recommended protein, carbs, and fat in a healthy diet. Then it wants to do this, and we overflow here a little bit, that's fine. And if I say no, then it's a skipped running code, and then it says, apologies for the incorrect code. could you please provide the recommended values for protein, carbs, and fat in a healthy diet? So what I want to do now is I want to say, don't show it, just create the file. They were correct, just don't show the PLT, only save the file. So hopefully it will change the code to not show it and only change the file, save the file. And it did exactly that. So now we can say yes, and we will run it, and it should be saved into data/pie chart, and it's still in sandbox, which is a bit annoying. But if we go and we take a look at the pie chart, then here we have a pie chart of a healthy diet, which is very amazing. So I will publish this code on my GitHub if you want to use it, and make sure to give it a star and share it to everyone in the world. Let's make it trending. And I'll post a link in the description where you can find it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.